Hello, I am the Notherian, and I'm here today with Holyllama, who will be playing this Saturday in the final 8 of the Forgewatch Invitational.
Hey
Thank you
guys.
so much for joining me.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
And I also have with me to help in this interview Kit, who will be in the booth for the Forgewatch Invitational this weekend.
Hey guys, nice to talk to you again.
So, Llama, thanks for stopping by. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the deck you're going to be playing this weekend in the Invitational. I have the deck on screen here for people who are watching at home. And the only difference between my version of your deck and the actual deck you're playing is that I don't have the third Thundersaur. So I just tossed in a third Justicar instead. But basically, this is what you'll be playing. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided on this deck?
Sure. So initially we started off with the Wirewood Patriarch deck that didn't have robots in it. And we were playing the Synapsis Oracles, Aloy in general, those kind of cards. And that was the first deck we stumbled upon that was really, really good. And so we started with that deck. And you said, okay, this is fine, but like we get to the late game way too often, and that lets decks that are playing like Everflame Phoenix, Scorchmane Dragon, lets those decks kind of like take over sometimes if you have a bad draw. And it also had a pretty rough time against Tarsus because sometimes they were able to get really good Leafkin draws, and there was nothing we could do about it. And so what we wanted to do was to speed the deck up and to make it be a little more aggressive and be a little faster so it could handle the Tarsus decks, and so it could never get to the late game against the Phoenix decks. And so we added the robots. And what the robots do is they give you Arcflight Squadron, they give you Brightsteel Gargoyle, which give you a lot of board presence, and plus Brightsteel Sentinel. The three cards together are just really powerful at controlling the board. And so it's really hard for the removal decks to keep you off the board. And it's also gives you really explosive draws with Arcflight Squadron. So right now it looks like the format is really about nut draws. So it's about who can get on the board fastest and who can be doing the most powerful things as fast as possible. And this was a deck that we thought gave us the best chance of doing that while also being able to react to your opponent's draws by having Justicar and Gemhide Basher.
Definitely. A couple things that I noticed is seeing that Mossbeard Patriarch in your deck. I know that at least in the past formats, that card has been considered silly or Q and not really a real card. What's your experience been, and why do you suddenly have two?
Yeah, so the card's really interesting. It's one of my personal techs, and none of the other decks I think have it. And what it does is it's really good in the mirror match. So what the mirror match is about is like small trades. Nobody has really large creatures that kill each other in one hit. They're just bouncing off of each other. And so when you can play a Patriarch and also get a heal activation, then you get really far ahead because that's like half a trade right there. And they have to kill the Patriarch immediately because if they don't, then you just heal the rest of your creatures. So if they try to kill anything that's not the Patriarch, the Mossbeard, then you'll just heal whatever they're trying to kill because they can't kill it in one hit. And then they focus all their attention on the Mossbeard Patriarch, and then you get to develop the rest of your board while they're trying to beat this thing down. It is kind of tricky to play because you can't. If you play it in some board positions, it clearly levels really poorly. It has 1/3/7 attack, which is horrendous. So sometimes if you play it in bad spots and you don't get so far ahead on the board, you can kind of have it where it's like a really bad draw late game. But for the most part, if you play it on like really locked up board states where there's tons of things on the board, it can be really powerful because it makes the game focus around it. So it's my mirror match deck. I don't play it anywhere else.
Well, speaking of the other matchups, then, like, what's your game plan against some of the other favorite decks in the tournament?
Sure. So NT Removal is one of the other popular decks. That matchup revolves around board control. So like level 1 you don't stand a chance because they have every single removal spell in your deck kills everything in your deck. So basically you're just playing a threat, they play a Grimgaunt Predator and kill your threat. Like there's nothing you can do about that. That's how the matchup plays out. And so what you want to do is play for level 2. So you level up your threats like Arcflight Squadron, you level up your Wirewood Patriarchs, you level your Brightsteel Gargoyles and your Brightsteel Sentinels, you level these cards that let you stick on the board. And then you know they're going to die in player level 1. There's nothing you can do about that. But what you do is when you get to player level 2, suddenly all their removal, every single piece of removal in the deck doesn't kill Arcflight Squadron, right? They have like 2 or 3 removal spells. And so you play, once you get on the board, then it becomes a game of do they have the removal spell or do they not? And then once you win the game, right, once you win the little sub-game of do they have the removal spell, then you just flood the board. Because eventually a Brightsteel Gargoyle or a Arcflight Squadron will stick, and then you get to take over the game from there. And usually you'll be able to get enough pressure on the board before they can, like before they can get to level 3. And it turns out the way I've played the matchup is that you get so far ahead on player level 2 that, like, even if they have a 2.4 Phoenix, they can't play it because they're just dead if they do, right? And so they have to make another play, and so they can't even like have Phoenixes as they're out anymore. And so it's that's kind of how that matchup goes. Is you're kind of jockeying for board position in player level 1, and then player level 2 you just kind of take over. Against Tarsus, Justicar is kind of the player there. Obviously, if you have him early, it helps, but if you don't have him early, it can be kind of a problem because, they fill the board and then you play Justicar and it doesn't do anything. So you can't rely only on Justicar. You also have to play your other threats. So Arcflight Squadron is, again, really good in this matchup because it's about going wide, and so you can play an Arcflight Squadron and then fill up 3 lanes on your next turn with 3 creatures, and then their threats are not as powerful. Also, you have Thundersoar, which is really good in the matchup because if they don't have a Call of the Week, so a lot of the Tarsus decks have been playing Call of the Week, but when they don't, he's obviously very, very hard for their deck to deal with. He's, his stats, when you give him 1+2/+2 with a Ferocious Roar or a Wirewood Patriarch, he becomes like a 2/14, which is like very hard for them to deal with because their deck is also all about nickel and diming. So they like hit your creatures for a little bit of damage, and then that's it. And like, so you can't really nickel and dime a Thundersoar out because they just hit him for a small amount of damage and then he's gigantic, and that gives you plenty of time to get more roars on him. So he's the key card in that matchup. Also, you have Gemhide Basher for their Leafkin draws. If they happen to have like a turn 1 Leafkin, you can counter that with your Basher sometimes, which is really helpful. And also, if you miss the Basher on turn 1 but draw it on turn 2 after they've leveled their Leafkin to a 7/7, it's still very possible to play a Basher plus a Tactician or a Ferocious Roar to take the Leafkin out as well. Also, Thunderstorm does a really good job of trading with Leafkin. So it's Brightsteel Gargoyle is not as effective in the matchup because they clog the lanes a lot. So it's it's tough to get him moving to exactly where you want him to be. But it's still a pretty fine matchup for the deck, mostly because of Thunderstorm.
Well, to segue then, it would be fun to show the viewers your deck in action. So I think I'm going to load up a Tarsus deck that I have prepared, and we'll play a match and chat a little bit more while we're playing.
Sure. Hopefully I can do okay.
Wonderful. Do you mind if I ask you guys some questions still while you guys are playing?
Sure.
So my question for you is, what's your normal procedure when you're testing for a deck for an event? Are you just going through constructed events? Do you have a play group? What do you normally do?
So for the Invitational, I tested with Foxhole and Kit, and we basically would bounce deck ideas off each other. We say, okay, this matchup is kind of hard. What do you think? What kind of cards do you think would be better in this matchup? And then we just run the deck through the constructed queues. And so we, we just play, 3 rounds of constructed. And when I lost, we would check to see, why exactly did we lose? What cards did we lose to? How could we have played better? Most importantly, because a lot of times you'll lose just because you could have played better and you didn't play the right cards in the matchup and things like that. So you just play through the queue, figure out what matchups are hard, how you play each matchup, and then if you get stomped by a deck, is that a deck we should be playing maybe, or is that something we should think about? Because that's actually how I first discovered about the Robots edition. Is somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody stomped me with Arcflight Squadron Wirewood Patriarch, and it was not pretty, and so I said, oh, maybe I should try this out, and so that's kind of how that goes. So pay attention to how you're winning, how you're losing, and what you're losing to. Is basically how you go about it.
Well, now that you've seen what the meta's shaped up to be, do you feel like you made the best call for a deck? I know you're going to the top 8 with it, but do you think you picked the best deck that you could have played?
I think I picked the best archetype for the tournament. I think there are a few small card choices in particular. I would have played an Echo Wisp because if you guys were watching my stream, Age 8 crushed me in the first round with his Echo Wisp. It's really good in the mirror match because they can't in the mirror match you can't really prioritize Justicar, and so Echo Wisp becomes really powerful. So I would probably play 1 or 2 Echo Wisps in the deck, but otherwise I feel like I made the correct archetype choice.
All right, and my last question for you is, what are you most scared of in the coming top 8?
Whitefire. His deck is a very unique deck. He's got the Fire Fist Urantes and those cards. And I think he's got the scariest starts. I think because I saw him play I think it was against Radron where he just went like turn 1, Firefish Yuanti, turn 2, Wirewood Patriarch, and like I don't know what you do against that. Like that's incredible. Like that's so scary. So yeah, he's definitely one of the players I'm most afraid of in his deck list.
Is that a type of deck that you tested against when you were preparing?
No, not at all. I think I played against one deck like that in the random queue, and it was actually really close. And the only reason I won, honestly, was because my opponent made some pretty silly misplays that were like on-board misplays. So that was honestly the only reason I, even came remotely like close to winning that game. So I don't know. It's definitely something I need to practice for.
Another Thundersaur.
Oh yeah.
In Echo Wisp killing range.
I hope you don't have a roar. That's also one of the things you have to do in the matchup is hope they don't have a roar quite frequently.
Yeah. Sadly, I don't have enough to draw one every turn.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how you have to play SolForge. That's what makes it really fun. Is sometimes they have it and they crush you, and other times they don't, and then you get to play a really fun game.
So you're saying Ferocious Roar makes games unfun?
No, I'm saying. Well, I mean, you might think that after I make my next play here, but.
So what cards do you prioritize when you're playing against the Tarsus Deathweaver decks? Like, what is your primary plan? Are you playing to the board, or are you specifically looking to target certain cards to level, or?
You really do need to play to the board in the matchup. You can't really plan on going late game because they have some really insane Tarsus draws in the late game. So one of the you really don't want to do is block. Like that's one of the things that can get you really far behind. Except in the case where you get to kill the Tarsus, which I'm going to do here. But other than being able to kill a Tarsus, you usually don't want to block because it usually goes pretty poorly, or like it usually because what you're doing is more powerful than what they're doing. Like here I'm going to only block because of the Tarsus, but I'm not even going to touch the Zimus. I'm going to leave the Zimus there. That way I can, my Thundersaur is huge. He's going to have a tough time dealing with that if he doesn't have a Botanimate. And while that's going on, the Brightsteel Gargoyle is slightly growing. So like I want to make him react to me because he's a lot worse at reacting than he is at being proactive. Yeah, and he just had to spend 2 cards on this Thundersaur.
Yeah, that's never a good thing, and I would have loved to have brought out, would have loved to have leveled something a little bit better, but not against that board. Yeah, you've already got a 20+ point life lead, so.
Yeah,
and growing.
Yeah, this.
Growing is the key word.
Let's. Yeah.
So do you feel? Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I just think I need to get that Arc Flight Squadron off the board. Again, this is as Llama was just saying. When I have to spend my plays reacting instead of developing my board position, it doesn't end well for me.
Yeah. Also, another good reason to leave the Zimus and his creatures unblocked is because Thundersaur's really good at blocking. Like this.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think I'm gonna kill the Echo Wisp on your turn. But yeah, go ahead, Kit. You're gonna say something.
Oh, I thought no blocking, sir. Just kidding. So who are you looking to play against? Like, who do you think you have a really good matchup in the top 8? Have you had a chance to look at that yet and see if there's specific matchups that you feel like you might have to test less for than others, for instance?
Yeah, so specifically I'm looking to go into the mirror match. I feel like that's something I've practiced a lot going into the tournament because it's something I expected a lot of. And in particular, I want to play against Table because he doesn't have 3 Arc Flight Squadrons, which is I think a really important card in the mirror match. And so that's something I'm looking to hopefully take advantage of if I can get to play against him. I no disrespect to him as a player. I just missing the Arc Flight Squadrons I think is pretty critical.
Have you looked at Pesh's deck? Pesh has a very interesting take on Aloyan Utera. I've heard people say that all you Aloyan Utera players are the same, but he seems to be doing something a little bit different.
Yeah. So his deck is the deck I was talking about as the early version of this deck, where he's playing Synapsis Oracles, and I think he's playing Aloy in general. But he's not playing. He's basically the big difference is he's not playing the robots theme, and so his deck is not really capable of hyper aggressive starts. It's got some aggressive starts, but this deck is for the most part a lot faster. And so for that matchup, I'd be expecting to end the game really quickly and not. Not try to drag things out because the Oracle will give him the advantage there.
And like a true gentleman, Yamas does not go still had all these.
except when I'm playing Johnny Appleseed with all the Leafkins, because that's so much fun.
Well, thank you so much, Llama, for coming and talking with us today. And we'll look forward to seeing you play this weekend in the Final 8. Best of luck to you.
Oh,
Good
thank
luck.
you.